Whew. Good morning, y'all. It is the first day of winter. Actually, it's really the second day. Yesterday was winter solstice, the shortest day of the year, and I guess that's technically winter. And then today is the first day that our days start getting longer. And I thought it'd be great to educate ourselves on what does that mean to the gardener. You know, it's always been kind of a mystery. You know, the simple thing is, okay, we've changed seasons. But then the rest of it's kind of like a mystery. What does that mean? So I thought, I educated myself last year. I tried to put a little bit into a video that didn't get much views, which is fine. But I thought, let's dedicate a whole video this year to it so people understand what that means for the gardener. We all know that when we plant seeds that eventually, by the time they get big enough to fruit like this tomato, that in the winter it takes probably close to twice as long for those of us who garden in Florida. It takes like twice as long for that same fruit to ripen that the one in spring would go pretty quickly, maybe a couple weeks or a week or whatever the variety is and whatever the plant is. It could be eggplant, it doesn't matter, right? But the cool, and if you're up north, you know, you can't even, like above the frost line, you can't even garden through like those above the Mason-Dixon line. You can't do what I'm doing here in Florida and have tomatoes unless you have a greenhouse or a tunnel or something like cool like that, or bring your plants in. But in ground is kind of what I'm referencing. So I think, to go back to our original point, I think it'd be best to go onto the computer and let's see what it looks like when we look up the number of hours a day of daylight that we're having right now. Did you ever wonder why it is that we can still garden in Florida all winter long? It's not just that we're warmer, although we are warmer. It's more than that. It has to do with length of day and daylight. In Florida, we have about 10 hours and 20 minutes, sometimes 19 minutes, depending on the year. But we have about 10 hours and 20 minutes of daylight on the shortest day. So I thought it'd be really cool to go online, and I will show you where to go to look to see how many hours of daylight you have right here going into winter, and then it'll start increasing from that point forward. And I thought that might be a really great resource for you guys, so you can know if you can garden like this through the whole winter or not. Come on with me on the computer. Okay, now you can see I'm typing in timeanddate.com. Make sure you put it all in at one time, no spaces. And it takes you there. You'll see your location usually. Head on over to the sun and moon and go to the sun calculator. Under there, you'll see a nice space bar where you can put in your city or place and a graph. It'll tell you like when your sunrise and sunset are, your different twilights and so forth. But what you need to look for is underneath that yellow daylight sun, you will see on the left side, you will see 10 hours and 19 minutes if you live in my city. If you live where else, you can input your own city there. I'm trying to think of one right now. I'm going to go through north to south. Okay, so I'm putting in Buffalo because that's just north of me in New York. And you'll see the little bubble there. Now, they, on winter solstice, only had 9 hours and 1 minute of daylight. That's not enough to get you through out of dormancy. So they're still in, all their plants are dormant. So now we're heading over to Lexington, and they're at 9 hours and 31 minutes. Now remember, you need at least 10 hours of sunlight to stay out of dormancy. So they would still be in dormancy. Next, I went to Atlanta, Georgia, and there they have 9 hours and 54 minutes of daylight on the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year. And that is also not quite enough to stay out of dormancy. So I tried going a little further. We went to Mobile, Alabama. And then I think I ended up at some other historical park that was north, that was not Mobile. So we're going to try that again. Mobile. Let's go back to, and I said Florida because that's my habit. Hold on. Alabama. There we go. So let's put that in, and I see my little map changing. 10 hours and 10 minutes. There. Okay, so you have to be south of Mobile, Alabama, and south of that to stay non-dormant. So that would be everybody in lower Texas, the Panhandle of Florida, Jacksonville, Florida. Well, let's check Jacksonville. Hold on. I think Jacksonville. Yep, 10 hours and 11 minutes. That works beautifully. So if you're in Jacksonville and lower, you are also not going to be dormant. So you can garden all winter long. So I hope that was a pretty interesting demonstration for you guys, that it's not just about winter solstice and the shortest day of the year. It's not just about the changing into winter, and it's not all doom and gloom, because our days are increasing, even though it's still gonna be cold for a couple more months. And I might have to cover because of frost, but the plants will notice that light is increasing a little bit every day, probably like a minute or two, whatever it is, and that it will turn on and signal to them to start growing faster, and their fruit will start ripening sooner. So I just thought that was really interesting to bring that information to you. The line of where, the demarcation of where the dormancy ends, and we're just into slow growth. We never truly go dormant here. Our grass doesn't go dormant here either. And we still have to cut, even though it's only once a month. I still am cutting my grass. My flowers still may bloom, and my plants are still growing in the garden. It's just a pretty interesting thing when you think about it. There's so much more to gardening, and there's so much more than just flipping the calendar over and it's a new month, a new season, or a new word. Maybe winter solstice is new to you, but it's the celebration of daylight increasing and the growth that's going to come in the spring from it, all the way until we get to the summer solstice, which is in July. So I hope you learned something along with me. Take care, you guys. God bless, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.